The Buddha's Path, Awakening with 108 Dhamma Similes. 1. A bird in a cage. Use the mind to contemplate the body so that you're familiar with it. When you're familiar with it, you'll see that it's not for sure. Every part of it is inconstant. When you see in this way, your mind will give rise to a sense of disenchantment. Disenchanted with the body and mind because they're not for sure, they're unreliable. So you want to find a way out, a way to gain release from suffering and stress. It's like a bird in a cage. It sees the drawbacks of not being able to fly anywhere, so its mind is obsessed with finding a way out of the cage. It's fed up with the cage where it lives. Even if you give it food to eat, it's still not happy because it's fed up with the cage where it's imprisoned. The same with our heart. When it sees the drawbacks of the inconstancy, stressfulness, and not-selfness of physical and mental phenomena, it will try to contemplate how to escape from that cycle of wandering on. 2. The power of the Dhamma. The teachings of the Buddha get rid of people and give rise to venerables. In other words, they get rid of what's wrong in the mind. Only then can what's right arise. They get rid of what's evil so that goodness can arise. As when your house is dirty, if you sweep it out and wipe away the dirt, it'll be clean, because the dirt is gone. As long as what's wrong in the mind isn't gone, what's right can't arise. If you don't meditate, you won't know the truth. The Buddha's Dhamma is very powerful. If it couldn't change your heart, it wouldn't be a Dhamma with any power. But the Dhamma can turn ordinary people into noble ones because it enables people with wrong views to give rise to right views. 3. Your own witness. With the Dhamma, it's like going to the home of friends or relatives and they give you some fruit. When you take the fruit in your hand, you don't know whether it's sour, sweet, or unripe. In other words, if you simply hold the fruit in your hand, you can't know its taste. To know the taste, you have to bite into it and chew it. That's when you'll know that it's sour or sweet, or what its various flavors are, in line with your own perceptions. It's the same with the Dhamma. In everything, the Buddha has you take yourself as your own witness. You don't have to take anyone else. The affairs of other people are hard to judge because they're the affairs of other people. If something is your own affair, it's easy because the truth lies within you. It has you as its witness. When you hear the Dhamma, you have to meditate on it to be complete in study, practice, and attainment. Pariyatti is study so as to know. When you know, then patipatti. You put it into practice. With pativedha, attainment, knowledge in line with the truth arises within you. If you simply listen, your knowledge is just perceptions and concepts. If you talk about it, you speak in line with your concepts. You aren't bringing the truth out to talk about. This means you haven't reached the Dhamma, haven't contemplated the Dhamma. Your heart isn't Dhamma, but you can speak the Dhamma and act as if you were Dhamma. This is called being incomplete according to the standards of the Buddha's teachings. 4. The language of the Dhamma. All languages come together in the language of the Dhamma. I'll give you a simple example. When we boil water for tea so that it's hot, the word hot in Thai is rawn. In Aisan, it's hon. In English, they say hot. That's the way it is. Languages are like that. Each person speaks in his or her own language, even though it's all the same heat. If you want to find where all these languages come together, the language of heat all comes together where we stick our finger into the tea. If you get a Chinese person to stick his finger into the tea, the heat is no different from when you get a Westerner or an English person to stick his finger into the tea. The only difference is in the language of the words. Heat is the same for everybody. When you know heat, it means that you know how it is for everyone. 5. Open your eyes. People, if they don't feel pain, don't open their eyes. If they're happy, everything shuts down and they get lazy. When suffering stabs you, That's what gets you thinking, and you can really expand your awareness. The greater the pain, the more you have to investigate it to see what causes it. You can't just sit there and let the pain go away on its own. Right now, my arm feels heavy. Why? Because I've picked up this glass. If I let it go, the glass won't be heavy, or at least won't be heavy on me, because I'm not connected with it. The same with stress and pain. Why is it heavy? Why is it painful? Because you're holding on to it. But you don't understand that it's stressful. You think that it's something special, something good. When you're told to let it go, you can't let it go. When you're told to put it down, you can't put it down. So you keep on being heavy, keep on suffering. 6. Dyeing the cloth. Our Lord Buddha wanted us to get our foundation in good shape first, get everything clear and clean first. It's like building a house or a building. We have to inspect the ground, the area where we're going to put up the building so that it's in proper shape. Or like dyeing cloth. If you want to dye a piece of cloth, you have to look it over to see if it's dirty. If it's dirty, you have to wash it in detergent until it's clean. Only then will it take the color when you dye it. In other words, wash it until it's clean and then it will take the dye. It's the same with making merit. You first have to make your mind clean. Making your mind clean means letting go of evil thoughts, letting go of everything that's wrong and evil. That's when you can do good, do what's correct. With everything, the foundation has to be clean first, and then whatever you do will give rise to merit. Sabapapasa akaranam. First, you have to abandon evil, abandon what's wrong, in the same way that you get rid of the dirt so that you can dye your cloth. This is one of the lessons in the heart of the Buddha's teachings. 7. Remove the weeds. For your vegetable to grow big and beautiful, you have to remove the weeds. That's when your vegetables will have a chance to grow large and beautiful because you've removed the weeds. You've removed the bad things around the vegetables so the vegetables can grow. It's the same with our body, speech, and mind. If we remove our bad actions, then our goodness, our virtue will grow. So take the precepts and follow them with restraint, with care. 8. Why wait? As soon as there's anything unskillful in your thoughts, words, and deeds, remove it. Don't let it hang around for a long time. It's like a wound appearing in your body or a thorn sticking into your foot. You want to remove it, but would it be better to remove it today or tomorrow? Or how about taking it out next week? Or suppose you get a stomach ache today. A stomach ache is painful and you want the pain to go away. But do you want it to go away today, or would tomorrow be better? Or would you rather wait for a week for it to go away? 9. Awakening to the Dharma. Reaching the Dharma, awakening to the Dharma. These things sound awfully exalted, too exalted to talk about. But actually, people like us are on a level where we can reach the Dharma. Reaching the Dharma is understanding. This is evil. It's wrong and doesn't benefit me or anyone else at all. When you understand in this way, that's called reaching the Dharma of what should be abandoned. This is what's called awakening to the Dharma. It's like going to a boat landing. When you've arrived at the landing, you've reached the landing. When you come up here to the meeting hall, you've reached the meeting hall. When you're correctly acquainted with the truth, that's what's meant by reaching the truth, reaching the Dhamma. When you've reached the Dhamma, your defilements gradually fade away and decrease. When your views are right, it's normal that you'll abandon your wrong views. 10. Knowledge and goodness. Knowledge is like a knife. You hone it until it's sharp, really sharp. Then you put it away. The knife can cause both benefits and harm. When a person of discernment uses it, it's sharp. A person of discernment can get lots of benefits from it because it's sharp. But a person without discernment can use it to destroy the nation, destroy happiness, destroy harmony, all kinds of things. And he can do it easily because the knife is sharp. When knowledge comes to a fool, it's like putting a weapon in the hands of a bandit or an evil person. He'll shoot people all over the place, kill all over the place. When knowledge comes to a wise person, the nation and its people get along easily. These days we pin our hopes on knowledge. We worship knowledge. We rarely worship goodness or correctness. When you have knowledge, you need to have goodness and correctness as well. When you encourage these things, the world will go well. But here it's, I've got knowledge, so I'm in charge. In this way, everything goes to hell. That's what it's like when you have knowledge without goodness. 11. Goodness without discernment. Skillfulness doesn't focus only on pleasure or happiness. It has to see where that happiness comes from and what it's like. You have to use your discernment to see what it comes from. Some people think that gaining a lot of wealth is goodness. Not gaining a lot is bad. It doesn't matter to them how you gain it, just as long as there's a lot. Suppose that after a while they decide that human skin fetches a high price. 1 kilogram fetches tens of thousands of baht. So another group goes out looking for human skins. Where could we live? We'd be killing one another all over the place simply to get skins to put up for sale, because human skin fetches a high price. These days we look for our livelihood, thinking that the more we gain, the better. But if we gain it in a way that's not moral, would it be right? Every form of goodness has to be done with discernment. Any form of goodness done without discernment is harmful. Any form of goodness done with discernment is free of harm. Any form of goodness done without discernment is goodness outside the Buddha's teachings. It's like a person advertising poison for sale. He says, "My poison is good. If you feed it to a dog, the dog will die. If you feed it to a person, the person will die. If you feed it to a chicken, the chicken will die. Whoever you feed it to will all die. So buy my poison. It's good poison." If it's really good, you should try feeding it to the person selling it. But its goodness is that it kills. Whatever eats it dies. So he says it's good. If it's good, you should try feeding it to the person selling it. But would he eat it? He wouldn't eat it. He'd be afraid that it would kill him. That kind of goodness is goodness outside the Buddha's teachings. It's harmful goodness, filthy goodness, unclean goodness, goodness that's not peaceful. Goodness in line with the Buddha's teachings is goodness without harm. This is why, when you look for happiness in line with the Buddha's teachings, you have to do it with discernment. 12. Genuine wealth. Silena Bhoga Sampada. A person with virtue has wealth. In terms of external wealth, all the things that we search out for our livelihood will be right livelihood. The things we gain from right livelihood, even if they're not much, are large. They're large because they have value. That's why they count as Bhoga Sampada, consummation in terms of wealth. Like diamonds and jewels, even tiny pieces have a high price because they're free of things that are worthless. All the things that we use to maintain our livelihood, if they're free of harm, they have value. They're wealth. 13. Seeing the fullness. When you make merit, what is merit? It's correctness. In other words, it's bringing the mind to peace, away from all kinds of evil. All of you lay people have gathered to make merit, but when you look for the merit, each of you has to look for yourself. These things you've brought here are objects, lots of different objects. It's like eating. You gain delicious tastes because of objects. But when you're full, where is the fullness? You don't know. The fullness doesn't have any substance, but everyone knows that you feel full. Some people don't see merit. Not seeing merit is like not seeing the fullness from eating. Suppose that we all eat a meal. We use up the curry, we use up the rice, we use up the sweets. And what do we gain? Fullness. Fullness isn't a thing, but it appears in the mind. That's what we gain. What does it come from? It comes from objects, from the activity of eating the objects. It's the same with merit. I've heard people say, "I've made merit, but I don't see that I've gained any merit." Apparently, these people eat, but without seeing any fullness. Don't you know what fullness is? Fullness is the result that comes from eating. The activity we're doing now is called making merit. It's a convention. The merit is in the mind's being serene and at ease. 14. The Teacup. I'll tell you a story about the Supreme Patriarch, something I've heard from other people. He went to China, and when he arrived, the Chinese gave him a teacup. It was really beautiful. There was nothing like it in Thailand, and as soon as he received the teacup, he suffered. Where was he going to put it? Where was he going to keep it? He put it in his shoulder bag. If anyone touched his shoulder bag, he'd say, "Watch out. Don't break the teacup. Watch out for the thing that can break in there." So he was always worried about it, suffering from it, suffering from having, and then clinging. That's what made him suffer. One day a novice let the teacup slip from his hand and it broke. The Supreme Patriarch said, "At last, that's the end of my suffering." This is called events happening to free him from his suffering. If the teacup hadn't broken, he would have probably been reborn as a hungry ghost right there. It's like the things in your house. If there's nothing there, you suffer because you want to have things. You think that once you have things, you'll be comfortable. But once you have them, you still suffer because you're afraid they'll get lost. You don't understand the suffering that's already arisen. 15. Pouncing on fire. We should all train our heart, look after our mind. Our mind, when it's not trained, is like a small, innocent child that doesn't know anything. Whatever it comes across, it pounces. If it comes across water, it pounces on the water. If it comes across fire, it pounces on the fire. It keeps causing harm to itself. 16. Learning about fire. When you see the harm of what you're doing, you can stop. You watch it until you can stop, until you can give it up. It's like lighting a lantern and letting your child loose. The child doesn't know anything. It crawls over and tries to catch hold of the flame. Then it'll start crying. The next day, if you try to take the child to the flame, it won't touch it, for it's seen the harm from the day before. It'll stop trying to catch it. Right here is where insight helps us. We really see. Whatever we really see, we can really let go. 17. Teaching from the top. The way we teach when we follow the Buddha's teachings is that virtue comes first, concentration comes in the middle, and discernment comes at the end. That's how we memorize these things. But with some people, you don't teach virtue first. You get them to sit until their minds are quiet. You don't yet talk about 1. Virtue, 2. Concentration, 3. Discernment. Have them sit until their minds are quiet. When they're quiet, they'll sense things on their own. It's as if there were a poisonous snake under a piece of cloth right here. We can stand on the cloth and feel relaxed because we don't know it's there. But when the mind is quiet, we'll sense that something is wrong. It's like this tree here. We're told to teach it beginning from the base, but we can also teach people to grab hold of the top first. As they follow along the tree, they'll get to the base. If you start with the base and follow along, you'll get to the top, because the base and top are part of the same thing. It's the same when you try to figure out how to teach some people. With concentration, when the mind is quiet, it'll sense that something is wrong. Discernment will gradually seep in, and the mind will gradually gain a sense of right and wrong. 18. Drop after drop. When contemplating a meditation object, check to see which object is right for you. It's like food on a tray. You have to contemplate for yourself to choose which foods are right for the conditions of your body. In the same way, you choose a meditation object right for you, the in and out breath, or you can contemplate the body. In practicing, you have to keep at it gradually but steadily, like water that falls in drops, steadily into a big water jar. The jar doesn't dry out. The animals living in the jar don't die. If you contemplate the Dhamma themes of inconstancy, stress, and not self until you understand, it's like loosening a bolt in a counterclockwise direction. It's no longer so tight, so that you don't grasp at what's inconstant, stressful, and not self. 19. Just right. Ever notice how the Buddha image is sitting? Is his head bent back? Is it hanging down in front? He's sitting there just right. So right now, let's make our bodies just right, our minds just right. If the mind and body aren't just right, there won't be any stillness. Have you ever noticed that things whose goodness isn't just right aren't really good? When things are good, it's because their goodness is just right in every way. You don't have to look far away. It's like the curry we eat. If it's too salty, is it good? If it's too bland, is it good? When a cook fixes curry, she puts everything together just right. She aims at just right. So today, let's make our bodies just right, our minds just right. 20. Everything gathers in the ocean. The water in the ocean comes from little rivers. They flow into the ocean from different directions, but they all come together there. It's the same when we meditate. We all bring the mind to stillness, and then we practice not clinging. Big rivers, small rivers, all gather in the same ocean. It doesn't matter where they come from. They all gather in the ocean. We practice meditation to make the mind quiet and to stop clinging to the 5 aggregates. It's all the same, so you don't have to worry about it. If you see that this method is easier than that one, you can take this one. If you see that another method is easier, you can take that one. It's just a matter of what's right for your propensities. 21. Coconut water. The crude beginning level of the practice is a little hard to maintain, but the refined levels of virtue, concentration, and discernment all come out of this. It's as if they're distilled from this same thing. To put it in simple terms, it's like a coconut tree. A coconut tree absorbs ordinary water up through its trunk, but when the water reaches the coconuts, it's sweet and clean. It comes from ordinary water, the trunk, the crude dirt. But as the water gets absorbed up the tree, it gets distilled. It's the same water, but when it reaches the coconuts, it's cleaner than before, and sweet. In the same way, the virtue, concentration, and discernment of your path are crude. But if the mind contemplates these things until they're more and more refined, their crudeness will disappear. They get more and more refined, so that the area you have to maintain grows smaller and smaller into the mind. Then it's easy. 22. Patience. Desire is something known right at the mind. We're like fishermen who go out to cast their nets. As soon as they catch a fish, they rush to pounce on it, which scares the fish away. The fishermen are afraid that the fish will escape from the net. When that's the case, the fish are confused and hard to control, and so they quickly escape from the net. This is why people in the past taught us to gradually feel our way along, to keep at it gradually and steadily. When you feel lazy, you do it. When you feel diligent, you do it. If you keep doing it a lot, then as soon as you find the quiet path, the mind will calm down. When you practice, you're taught to keep at it. Don't give up. When you feel diligent, you do it. When you feel lazy, you do it. But you have to practice like a person spinning a fire stick. If you start and stop and start again because you're impatient, you won't get anywhere because of your impatience. When you practice, you don't need to think about a lot of things. Just survey right at yourself. You don't have to survey anywhere else. If you see yourself, you see other people. It's like aspirin and Tylenol. If you know one, you know the other, because they're both meant to cure the same illness. They're both painkillers. People who practice and those who study like to criticize each other, but it's like putting your hand palm up and palm down. When it's palm down, the palm hasn't gone away anywhere. It's right there, just that we don't see it. If you study without practicing, you don't see things for what they are, and that can make you deluded. 23. The Dharma in a pot. When cooked rice is just sitting in the pot, what purpose does it serve? If we don't practice with it, if we don't spoon it onto a plate, add a little curry and pepper sauce, and then eat it, what purpose will it serve? even though the rice is good. The Buddha's teachings are the cooked rice in a pot. If we just keep the teachings there in the pot, what purpose will they serve? They just stay there in the pot. If you cook good jasmine rice and then just set it high on the table, will it give you any flavor? Will it make you full? We take the Buddha's teachings and simply set them high in the world without practicing them. We keep on bowing down to them. If we really bow down, it means we believe them. We trust them. If we believe and trust them, we have to practice in line with them. That's when the Buddha's teachings will serve a purpose. They depend on each and every one of us to practice them. 24. Chickens. Coming to the monastery. Some people come to the monastery but never come to the meditation hall to hear the Dharma. They sit way out there chatting with their children and grandchildren and don't understand anything. This isn't coming into the monastery like people. This is coming into the monastery like chickens. Chickens bring their baby chicks into the monastery, scratching around for dog shit and pig shit. They're not looking for anything else. This is not the right way to come to a monastery. It's coming into the monastery without seeing the monastery, coming into the monastery without seeing monks. It's like a fish living in water without seeing water, or an earthworm living in the dirt, eating the dirt but not seeing the dirt. It's the same with us. We come into the monastery, but we're not acquainted with the monastery. We come into the monastery without reaching the monastery. This gives rise to problems not only for us, but also for our children and grandchildren. We say that coming to the monastery gives rise to merit, and it's something that human beings have to do. We see our parents coming to the monastery and we simply follow along. As a result, when we're in our 40s or 50s and someone teaches the Dhamma, speaks about the practice, about the Buddha, Dhamma, or Sangha, we don't understand anything. We don't know anything at all. 25. Thieves. Youre, a sense of shame, and Atapa, a sense of compunction. These are qualities that protect the world, but they can protect the world only because we practice them. If we don't practice them, they don't protect anything. Some Westerners have called me on this. They say, "You live in Thailand. Thailand is a Buddhist country, so why does it have so many thieves?" I admit that it's true. Thailand has lots of thieves, but it's people who are thieves. The Dhamma isn't a thief. It's probably the same in the West. Not only in Thailand do we have dishonest people. They're thieves. There are good laws and morality is still good. So I admit that there are thieves in Thailand, but the Dhamma isn't a thief. 26. The blind person. Venerable Father, what is white like? It's like white lime. What is white lime like? It's like a pale sky. What's a pale sky like? This never comes to an end because you don't know the truth. Fish live in the water but don't see the water. Earthworms live in the dirt but don't see the dirt. Not seeing yourself, not knowing the truth, is like a person living with his skeleton and getting frightened by skeletons because he doesn't see the truth. Listening to the Dhamma gives lots of merit in that it helps you to see that there's a thorn in your foot. As soon as you see it, you take it out. The people who don't benefit from listening to the Dhamma are those who don't know the cause of stress, don't know the cessation of stress, and don't know the practices leading to the cessation of stress. In other words, they don't really know suffering because they don't contemplate it. 27. Don't run along. Meditation means contemplating in a way that solves problems at the same time. Look at yourself a lot. Keep track of the mind, your sensitivity, your thought fabrications. Actually, all your thoughts are an affair of fabrication. To put it in simple terms, don't run along with them. Don't follow in line with them. They're just an affair of mental fabrication. Fabrications fabricate things, now wanting this, now wanting that. Try to fix your attention on keeping track of their stages as they're happening. Whatever they're about, they're all not for sure, each and every one. When you see this clearly, that will end your doubts. Whatever thoughts arise, know that they're not for sure. Don't go attaching meaning to them and they'll end on their own. When they don't end, make them end, and that's the end of the matter. They're just an affair of fabrication. If we don't understand, we'll think that they're an affair of discernment. Actually, our thoughts and ideas are all an affair of fabrication. They're not genuine knowing, but we think that they're knowledge. They're knowledge that doesn't let go. If knowledge is genuine, it lets go. 28. The salt of meditation. Generosity and virtue are like meat. Meditation is like salt. For the meat to keep without spoiling, you have to salt it. Meditation is what makes your generosity correct, makes your virtue correct. That's why meditation is something of very high value. It's the ultimate perfection. 29. Complete food for the mind. Virtue, concentration, and discernment are like our food. If virtue were food, we'd say that it's sweet but without any richness. If you add concentration, that adds some richness. Now it's both sweet and rich. It's good that way. But if all you have is sweet and rich, it's still not complete. It has to be good smelling too. If you have all three, then the food is complete. Whether it's inner food or outer food, it's complete. Sweet, rich, and good smelling. It makes you want to eat your fill. That's what it's like. 30. Moving the glass. Samadhi means firm concentration. Bhavana, meditation, means making the mind have a single preoccupation. You don't have to do a lot of things. It's kind of like taking this glass and setting it here for a minute, then lifting it and setting it there for a minute. Lifting and setting it, back and forth like this, without doing anything else. When you meditate, contemplate the breath. When the breath comes in and out, know whether it's short or long. Whatever it feels like, be mindful. You don't have to force it. Whether the mind gets quiet or not, don't worry about it. Just keep at it as much as you can. 31. Better than no rice. When you come to sit in concentration, then even if your mind isn't yet quiet, simply sitting in the meditation posture is something good. It's better than people who don't even do that much. It's like being hungry, but today there's only rice with nothing to go with it. We feel disgruntled, but I'd say that it's better than having no rice at all. Eating plain rice is better than not eating anything, right? If all you have is plain rice, eat that for the time being. It's better than not eating anything at all. The same with this. Even if we know only a little about how to practice, it's still good. 32. The chicken in the cage. It's like having a chicken and putting it into a cage. Let it stay in just one cage. When the chicken's in the cage, it won't get out of the cage, but it will walk back and forth inside the cage. Its walking back and forth is no problem because it's walking back and forth in the cage. It's like the things we sense in the mind when we're mindful and still. When we sense things in the stillness, it doesn't disturb us. When we think and sense things in the stillness, it's no problem. Some people, when they sense things, don't want there to be anything there. That's wrong. There are things you'll sense in the stillness. You'll sense them, but they won't annoy you. The mind is still. There's no problem. The problem is when the chicken leaves the cage. For example, you're focused on the breath, but then you forget. You go traveling to your home or into the market, way out there. Sometimes it takes half an hour to come back. That's dying without knowing what's happening. This is important, so be careful. This is important. The mind has left the cage. It's left its stillness. You have to be careful. You have to be mindful. As soon as you're aware that it's left, you have to pull it back in. Although to say that you pull it back in, you're not really pulling it back in. Wherever your thoughts go, it's just a matter of changing what you sense. When you get the mind to stay here, it stays here. As long as you're mindful, it stays here. It doesn't go anywhere. The change is right here in the mind. Notice that when it seems to go over there, it doesn't really go. The change happens right here. As soon as your mindfulness remembers again, it's immediately here. It doesn't leave from here. Everything is sensed right here. 33. Only one hole open. Focus your heart in your heart. Make mindfulness continuous. Get the mind to calm down its preoccupations, leaving just awareness, like Teacup. He went to learn the Dharma from a novice. The novice taught him that there's a termite nest with 6 openings. You want to catch the lizard hiding in the hollow inside the termite nest, so what do? You close off 5 of the holes and leave open only 1 hole, so that you can catch the lizard when it comes out. In other words, leave your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and body alone, and be aware right at the heart. That's what it means to focus your heart in your heart. The same today. To catch all your awareness and gather it in together, you have to practice restraint of the senses. You restrain your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Let go of the entire body and simply be aware at the heart. This is called focusing your heart in your heart. 34. The water cooler. If you know something simply by memorizing it, there can still be doubts. If you know the truth, that's the end of your doubts. It's like this water cooler that has only a single opening for the water to go out. It won't go out any other way. If you tilt it in any other direction, the water won't go out, for there's no opening. And the advice you hear from this person here is for you to go right to that opening. Try to make your mind go right to that opening. If you try to pour the water out in another direction, it won't come out, for there's no opening. You have to pour it in this direction, and it will flow right out. Oh, this is how it comes out. That's when you understand it. 35. Recognizing fire. When we see the truth, we'll admit the truth. When we see the cause that gives rise to stress, then wherever stress would arise, we don't do that. We don't say that. We practice so that our practice becomes correct, and stress won't arise. It's the same as when a person makes a mistake often because he doesn't recognize mistakes. He doesn't recognize fire. If people recognize fire, will they grab hold of it? No matter who grabs hold of it, they get burned. Once they know this, none of them will grab hold of fire. The mind is hotter than fire, but nobody senses that it's hot, and so they say that it's nothing to worry about. They don't know that whatever's not correct is hot and burning. This is why human beings keep grabbing hold of it, sometimes even when they know better. They're servants of craving. They're slaves. All of us. If we don't know the Dhamma, we're all slaves to craving. 36. Looking for a teacher. When you go looking for teachings on how to meditate, you have to look for people who are pure, monks who are pure, who really act in line with what they say, people who are content with little, who practice to gain release from suffering, to gain release from the cycle of wandering on. This energizes your practice because it gives rise to a sense of conviction and inspiration. If the teachers are lay people like you, I've never felt inspired by them. They have spouses, children, belongings. They're embroiled. In the evening, they teach meditation, and then in the morning, they drink beer, drink alcohol. They're just ordinary people. When you study in school, what do? You look for teachers who know more than you do, right? Only then will you study with them. When you practice the Buddha's teachings, when you practice meditation, you have to look for people with few defilements, light defilements, people who've been able to get out of their defilements to a good extent. 37. The stick in the stream. All of us who have come here to practice, walk in a way that correctly follows the Dhamma of the Buddha. Follow in line with his footsteps, in line with virtue, concentration, and discernment so that your practice is right. And I firmly believe that the results are sure to arise within you. It's like cutting a stick and throwing it into the current of a stream. If the stick doesn't go rotten and it doesn't get snagged on the far bank or the near bank of the stream, it'll keep on floating along with the current. And you can be sure that it'll eventually reach the ocean. One of the stream banks is pleasure, the other bank is pain. The stick is your mind. As it floats along with the current of the stream, pleasure will bump into it, pain will bump into it often. As long as your mind doesn't grasp onto the pleasure or the pain, it'll reach the current flowing to nibbana, respite and peace. 38. Addicted to curry. It's like a dog. If you feed it plain rice every day, it'll get fat like a pig. But if one day you start mixing some curry in with the rice, just 1 or 2 meals, then after that, if you give it plain rice again, it won't eat it. It gets addicted to the curry really fast. Sights, sounds, smells, and tastes are things that can destroy our practice. If we don't contemplate our 4 requisites, clothing, food, shelter, and medicine, Buddhism won't be able to survive. 39. Eating the hook. When people are deluded, they deludedly see that hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin are wonderful things. Beautiful. It's like a fish biting a hook. Whether it's biting the hook or biting the bait, it doesn't know. It wants to bite the bait, but what comes into its mouth is the hook, snagging its mouth so that the fish can't get away. No matter how much it wants to get away, it can't. It's stuck. It's the same with us. When we see hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin, we like them. We fall for them, and we're already stuck on their hook. By the time we realize what's happened, it's already hooked into our mouth. It's hard to get away. If we think about getting away to ordain, we're worried about our children, our belongings, worried about all kinds of things. And so we don't get away. We stay right there until we die. This means that the hook has snagged us by the mouth. We don't know, and so we're deluded, like the fish that's deluded and doesn't know which is the bait and which is the hook. If it really knew the hook, it wouldn't eat the hook. It would eat only the bait. The reason we're stuck in the world is because of these 5 things. They're beautiful. They're wonderful. We like these things. We submit to these things until we die. Actually, there's nothing much to them. It's just a matter of the hook snagging the mouth of the fish, that's all. Take this and think about it carefully. 40. The tree in the seed. Samadhi is firm concentration. If you're firm in your practice, it's a kind of concentration, but it doesn't yet give you the fruit. It's still just the flower, but out of the flower comes the fruit, big or small. The potentials of people are not the same. Things that are buried inside, we don't yet see, like the seed of a jackfruit. Suppose that you eat some jackfruit and lift out a seed. When you do that, you're lifting a whole jackfruit tree, but at the moment you don't see it. You don't yet know it. Even if you were to split open the seed, you still wouldn't see the tree because it's subtle. When you don't see it, you feel that there's no tree in there. Why? Because it hasn't been mixed with the right things. If you plant a jackfruit seed in the dirt, then it will start growing. Leaves will appear, branches will appear, they'll get bigger and bigger. Flowers will appear, small fruits will appear, big fruits will appear, ripe fruits will appear. But as long as the seed is still just a seed, you can't point to these things in there. This is why people don't take any interest. When you're meditating, you're picking up a mango, and you're picking up the whole mango tree. It's the same as picking up a jackfruit seed but without seeing the tree in the seed. What gets in the way? The sweet flavor of the flesh gets in the way. The sour flavor gets in the way. We haven't yet made our way into the jackfruit tree inside the jackfruit seed. All we can see is that the flesh is sweet. It's delicious. All these things get in the way of our seeing the jackfruit tree inside the jackfruit seed. It's the same with us as we practice. We sit on top of the Dhamma. We lie down on top of the Dhamma. We plant our foot on the Dhamma with every step, but we don't know that we're stepping on Dhamma. 41. Running in circles. When you live alone, you can still be stupid. You can still suffer. When you live with a lot of people, you can be stupid and suffer. It's like chicken shit. If you hold it by yourself, it stinks. If you hold it with a lot of people, it stinks. There's a way in which it's right to think that living with a lot of people isn't quiet, but living with a lot of people can also give rise to lots of discernment. I myself have gained a lot of discernment from having lots of students. When lots of people with lots of ideas and lots of experiences come together, it has to give rise to stronger and greater powers of endurance. I can endure. I can keep on contemplating things. It's all beneficial. The cycles of wandering on keep spinning around, so how can you keep running after them? If they speed up, can you catch up with them? Just stand in one place, and the cycles will keep running around you on their own. It's like a wind-up doll running around and around in circles. You stay right in the middle and you'll see it each time it runs past. You don't have to go running after it. 42. Lifting the bowl. What do stress and suffering come from? It's like lifting this bowl and feeling that it's heavy. If you put it down, it's not heavy anymore. As soon as you lift it up again, it's heavy again. So what does the heaviness come from? We feel heavy because we've lifted this thing. So we put it down. We put down the cause of its heaviness and we're light, right? No stress. Know the cause of stress. Know the cessation of stress. Know the path of practice leading to the cessation of stress. That's all you do. Just put down the cause, and the stress and suffering ceases. That's the practice. When we start out, we don't understand anything. We lift this up and it really feels heavy. Why is it heavy? We don't understand. Why is it heavy? Because that person looks down on us. Because this person criticizes us. All kinds of things. We don't know what we're holding in our own hand. But if we put it down and stay still, we're not heavy. See? We're not suffering because we're not lifting anything. That's all there is to our practice. 43. See for yourself. Now that you've come here to the monastery, you no longer have any questions about what Pouncing Monastery is like or where it is. That's because you've already seen for yourself. As long as you haven't seen for yourself, you have to keep asking other people. Keep that up until you die and you still won't know Pouncing Monastery. Why? Because all you know is what other people say. Do you know anything about it? You know, but it's not clear. Your knowledge doesn't reach the monastery. That's why there are still questions. This is why the Buddha taught us to meditate so that we can see things clearly for ourselves. As long as you simply believe what other people say, the Buddha says that you're still stupid. 44. Talk about blindness. This issue of nibbana, the Buddha describes it in a way that's unclear because there's no way you can describe it clearly. It's like talking to a person who's totally blind. Try describing a color in a way that's clear. Something really yellow. Go and ask a blind person if he knows it. The more you try to describe it, the less he knows. So how do you solve the problem? You have to focus back on the cause. Why are you blind? You'd do better to talk about how to cure the disease in his eyes. Once his eyes are good, then you don't have to teach him about red or green. He'll know for himself. 45. Your duty. Your duty is to plant a tree, water it, and fertilize it. That's all. Whether it's going to grow fast or grow slowly, that's not your duty. It's the duty of the tree. You can stand there complaining about it until the day you die, but it won't get you what you want. Where do your thoughts go? Maybe the soil here isn't good. So you pull up the tree. Its roots are just beginning to grow, but now they're torn off. You keep pulling it up, again and again, until it finally dies. Why do you want it to grow fast? Your desire for it to grow fast is craving. Your desire for it to grow slowly is craving. Are you going to follow your craving or are you going to follow the Buddha? Think about this every day. What you're doing, why are you doing it? If you're not at your ease, you're doing it with craving. If you let go, then you'll do the practice when you feel lazy. You'll do it when you feel industrious. But here, you don't do it when you feel lazy. You do it only when you feel industrious. That's just a practice that follows your craving. When are you going to practice following the Buddha? 46. Sitting with a cobra. Make the mind mindful and keep it aware all the time. The problem is how to keep it aware. Suppose you have an area about 3 meters wide and you're sitting inside it, and there's a big cobra staying in there too. What would your mind be like then? Because you don't trust the cobra, because it's poisonous, you won't dare lie down. You won't dare get drowsy. Why? Because you're afraid of the cobra. When you understand in this way, your awareness will get a lot clearer. 47. The spider. When we're mindful, we're like a spider making its web. It stretches its web across the air and then it puts itself in the center, quiet, still, unmoving, mindful. If a fly or a bee comes flying along and touches the web, the spider knows. It gets up and runs out to catch that insect and turn it into food. Once the spider has caught its food, it hurries back to its original spot. It makes itself quiet and alert, mindful. It knows when something is about to touch the web. As soon as something touches it, it's already awake because it lives with mindfulness. The spider is like our mind. The mind lies in the middle of the sense spheres: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. That's the way it is with a person who practices. If we're careful, alert, and restrained, we'll get to know ourselves. We'll get to know the mind, what it's doing, and in what way. 48. A road through the wilderness. Training the mind is something we have to do. As you train the mind over time, it's like making a road into the wilderness. At first, you're walking in the wilderness, but if you keep walking along the same path every day, the path gradually changes. The dirt gets harder, stumps get worn down, and the road becomes an easy place to walk. 49. Roads to pass by. When you come here to Nong Pa Pong Monastery, there are roads crossing your way, but they don't matter. You simply go past them because you don't want them. The same with all the preoccupations in the world. We want the mind to quiet down, but then we bring in disturbing preoccupations to stir it up again. If we understand that they're simply roads to pass by, we pass them by without paying them any attention. That's what it means to cut preoccupations away. For example, when the mind is quiet, what will it know? What will it see? Cut those thoughts away. They simply clutter up your path. 50. Know one, know them all. Sights, sounds, smells, tastes, everything. When you know one, you know them all. They all have the same characteristics. It's kind of like recognizing what characteristics this chicken has. All you have to do is learn to recognize one chicken. Then when you go to different provinces and find other animals like this one, you'll know that they're like this chicken. You don't have to go remembering that those other ones aren't ducks. They're chickens. You're sure of the matter. When you're sitting in meditation and a sound comes in, it's not the case that the sound is disturbing you. When that awareness arises, you're disturbing the sound. That's where you have to solve the problem. Discernment will gradually arise. You gradually contemplate and judge things for yourself. Wherever you get snagged, you undo the problem right there. Your duties while you practice concentration don't require you to do a lot. Keep the mind one. Know the breath coming in, the breath going out. When you get worried about something else, focus on the breath again. When you get confused about the breath, not knowing whether it's coming in or going out, establish your mindfulness all over again. 51. Two different things. If you sit in one place and sounds get you all upset, you go away from that place and find another place that's quiet. But if there are sounds there, you get upset again. That's because your knowledge comes from perceptions. You don't know in line with the truth. The truth is that you live with sounds and sounds live with you. And there are no issues because you're two different things. I'll give you an example. If you lift up this object, it's heavy. If you put it down, it's not heavy. Why is it heavy? Because you lift it up. Why is it light when you put it down? Because you're not lifting it. Lifting it is simply a matter of clinging to the idea that the sound is disturbing you. If you think in that way, you get upset. Suppose that this object weighs 1 kilogram. If you leave it there, it weighs just a kilogram. It's the same with sounds. If you leave the sounds alone, they won't disturb you because you don't grab onto them. 52. Killed by the mind. The mind is something really important. It can kill you or it can get you out of danger. We can see this from wild animals that we tame. Wild chickens, for instance, are really afraid of people. If you pounce on one and hold it to have a good look at it, it'll die. What killed it? The fierceness of its mind killed it. If it's afraid, it can be so afraid that it dies, just like people. When we get sad, the tears will flow. When we get too happy, the tears will flow because the mind doesn't stay in a condition that's just right. 53. Hiding in the mind. When a child is born, we don't see any good or bad, There's just a body. It comes naked. This shows that the things in one life can't be held in our hands to see in the next life. This is why, when a child is born, it doesn't bring anything along in its hands. But there are things that come along, simply that they come along somewhere else. They come along in the mind. I'll give you an example, like a mango seed or lamyai seed. As long as it's still a seed, you can examine it carefully and not find a tree in there, any flowers in there, because they're very subtle. But there's something in there. Even though a person coming into this life doesn't hold anything in his hands or carry anything over his shoulder, these things appear when nature begins to mature, for they're already there. Like a mango seed, the trunk, the leaves, the branches are all there in the mango seed. If we plant the seed in the ground, it'll turn into a trunk, leaves and flowers on its own. This is why the Buddha said that karma is what sorts people out so that they're different. 54. Strength and harmony. Virtue is a strength. Concentration is a strength. Discernment is a strength. When they pool their strengths and work together so that they're one and the same, that's called Maggasamangi, the path in harmony. As soon as this harmony arises, that's when you awaken to the Dhamma. It's like all of us here. When we're in harmony, we can be at our ease. Like students or teachers. If the teachers are in harmony, if the students are in harmony, the whole school is at ease. When the students are not in harmony and the teachers are not in harmony, running off in different directions, then there's no peace. The teachers and students have to cooperate. Teachers following their duties as teachers, students following their duties as students. Each person performs his or her duties to the full. No problems will arise. The same with practicing concentration. When there's virtue, concentration, and discernment, all kinds of good things will stand out right there, right where they're helping one another in harmony. To bring the matter in even closer, into the body, when the properties of earth, water, fire, and wind are in harmony, the body is beaming with health because of the harmony within it. But if the body isn't in harmony, if there's too much fire, too much earth, and not enough wind, the body will grow sick and uncomfortable. 55. You know you're full. The Buddha emphasized that we should think about what we're doing as days and nights fly past. If we know what we're doing, we have a refuge we can depend on. For example, if you do something right today but a friend says, "What you did is wrong," then you get angry with your friend. That shows that you do good things but think things that aren't good. Other people say, "You're not good," and you become not good in line with their words. Actually, if you do good, then even if other people say, "Not good," you're still good. You can stand your ground. After all, what you did was good. It's like eating rice today until you're full. If other people come and say you're not full, will you believe them? You believe in yourself that you're already full. When you can believe in yourself, that's when you can depend on yourself. From there, you go to Atana Kodai Atanam. You yourself should admonish yourself. If you do wrong, admonish yourself. Whatever you do, keep admonishing yourself. 56. Husk and not husk. When they say, admonish yourself, self is atta. As for yourself, it's not like that. Suppose that some water is murky. You filter it and see the clear water that comes from the murky water. That's clear water. If you filter yourself, it'll be anatta, not self, coming out of self. You'll see that it's not self. That's when it's anatta in line with the understanding of your discernment. But some people think that if everything is anatta, not self, then what's there to gain? We have to understand self and not self. They lie on top of each other. Have you ever been to a market to buy a coconut, to buy a banana? When you buy a coconut, it has its husk and its shell. They come along with it. If someone comes up and says, hey, that husk, that shell, are you going to put them in your curry too? If not, then why are you carrying them? The person buying the coconut knows that you can't eat the husk or the shell, but you have to bring them along. The time hasn't come to throw them away, so you have to bring them along. This is convention. When you buy a coconut, don't get deluded about the husk or the shell. Conventions and release come along with each other in the same way.